Thank you everyone for joining us today. We'll go ahead and get started. So hello and welcome to our RTAP bi-monthly webinar series. Thank you for joining us for today's presentation. My name's Beth and I'm a GRA here at Kansas RTAP. Please feel free to add your names and agencies in the chat box so we can all get acquainted. And in the meantime, I'll just go over some housekeeping rules before introducing the speaker. So please remember to keep yourselves muted during the duration of the presentation, as there will be a Q&A session at the end. But actually, Marcy has mentioned if she goes over something that you're interested in, feel free to speak up and let her know if you'd like to see something again, or if you have any questions about anything as she's going through it. But we will still have time for that Q&A session at the end. And then if you have any questions during the presentation, like I said, you can unmute and ask them, or you can put them in the chat box so we can address them later on. I'll also be adding my email to the chat box in case you run into any technical difficulties. So please feel free to reach out with any other concerns as well. Today, Marcy Jaffe will provide an overview of digital marketing and how it can set your agency for success. Marcy has an MBA and an MPA, and she supports rural, tribal, and intercity transit partners with technical assistance that powers General Transit Feed Specification, also known as GTFS, through National RTAP's no-cost GTFS Builder Toolkit. She's guided many with no prior digital data experience to successfully launch their data on Google Maps and other trip planners. Marcy has worked as an analyst with the Washington State Department of Transportation Public Transportation Office. And in addition, Marcy has worked at city and regional agencies, which guide her consulting firm, Transavision Inc., based in Washington State and Arizona. And with that, I'll hand it over to Marcy.
Thank you so much, Beth. I'm thrilled to join you today and share with each of you what kinds of successes you can have with a GTFS. I'm not going to explain what that is. If you don't know, you'll need to reach back to us and we'll share a different video on what is GTFS and how to create one. For those who might not be aware, National Rural Transit Assistance Program, National RTAP, that helps sponsor events in your state and across the country, is a technical assistance center with a vision of safe, compliant, efficient, and effective rural and tribal transit that reflects your community needs and values. Our board is meeting this week, and so others are very busy finding out what is our next step as a national RTAP. So don't hesitate at any time to reach back to us for training, technology support, for which this GTFS builder is part, and any assistance. You might be surprised when you say, gee, could I learn more about this? And either we have it or we'll find it for you. So I am your speaker for those who may only get a chance to look at the slides. Our goal in building GTFS is to make it publicly available. We've put some time into it. There's nothing in there that is your private information. This is taking your data and making it digital. So just like putting it at the laundromat or at the social service office or at the library, we're taking that data and now transforming it so that anyone in any language can view and use a GTFS. So now we've turned on free global marketing. Somebody decides to visit from Sweden or Caracas and they want to visit your town. They don't have to say, gee, could somebody tell me who the bus company is in your area? Because I'd like to call them and find out if they can help me get to my aunt, my cousin's house, and I need that last mile or transit information. Maybe there are students that want to do research. If we can give them data, they can practice with your data and other agency data. Maybe there are some new apps that we haven't seen yet. If this data is publicly available, we get a chance to see your information that you control in those new apps. Riders might have some unique mobility needs. There are devices that, guide us through GPS to say where I should stand, and that needs a GTFS file with precise bus stop locations. And I can't validate this, but I have to believe over time, we have fewer printed schedules that are needed because we can now rely on and utilize the digital data. Once we have this digital data, we can post it at a feed registry. So these feed registries start putting the data together for anyone who has publicly available data. And I'm going to jump out of my portion of the screen that's just telling you about GTFS to show you what some of these feed registries look like. I pulled up the state of Kansas, and at this point, those who are listed at Transit Land, remember Candyland, they are using a play on that, Transit Land, and they're posted here, but I believe there are more agencies. So it's an opportunity for us to say, we'd like to be even more exposed than what we have available at our website. And I'm going to show you for Lawrence on their website, they have a page dedicated to data and how to get to the static GTFS. So Transit Land picks that up and you work together to make sure that it's the current link for these agencies. If I came in here and I wanted to look at some of the map information, I could choose some routes and see those on a map if they're available. Maybe this agency didn't publish a shapes line or it didn't get picked up yet. So there's evolution of this process. The data is available, and when it is including a shapes line, which snaps the route to the road, we can look at an entire national map, which is a goal, an aspiration for the federal government to actually be able to say, we have gaps in a network, we have a network, and now we want to show someone where that network is. So if we are to come in and start displaying the national map, these are snapshots in time. They are not grabbing the data that might have been published a week ago or a month ago. Maybe twice a year, they'll decide how quickly of an interval they can layer it up. But when we have shapes, the snap to the road, this is what the national map will look like. And this data is going to be coming through the National Transit Database. The NTD report will start layering up more of this information. Now I'm going to show us a trip plan from Natalie, who I saw just joined our meeting. And let's see, are we in the right place? I think we are. We can display any of our routes on GTFS and Google Transit if the data is published by the agency. And in this trip plan for RCAT, we can look in and see all of the stops that we're going to take. And we can go back to the agency's website if we are needing more information about the dollar fare and want to purchase a ticket ahead. That's all right there inside of the trip plan. For RCAT, they have also made available their GTFS. Maybe I don't see it right away, but if I use my find function, which superpowered there, it always looks for GTFS on any page it can find. Here is the click to the GTFS for this local community. We're now making it publicly available. We don't have to call the agency every time we want to say, do you have a GTFS? It's available at their website. I'm imagining there aren't too many questions yet, but you'll let me know if there are. I'm going to now go into the community here in Lawrence and say, look at this amazing set of options, a larger community, multiple agencies, information's available. And what if I were a student with an internship up at Schlumberger and I wanted to get from my Aspen West apartments? What would I have done 10 years ago, 15 years ago, pre-Google Transit? How would I begin to answer the question, yes, it's not very far, but if I don't have a bicycle and I don't want to travel 25 minutes in the snow or in the blazing heat of summer, how would I get there? And with Google Transit, with a trip planner, we can now offer not just one option, two, three, four different options. And basically, you always see about four, maybe five options available. Some of them have more transfers, less transfers, and you can set that. So some of the features that you may not have seen before include less walking. So someone who has a little more time and needs less of a sprint or walk to the bus stop can set their aspiration of less walking. This system has identified that their bus stops are wheelchair accessible. Some agencies do not. And so it would not allow someone with a scooter or a mobility device to know whether that bus stop is accessible and that route is accessible and where would be the best place for them to stand or wheel to in order to get to their first stop along the way. So we'll have in this area that same idea that I can see all of my stops and when I will be stopping there along the way to get to my transfer point. And in this case, the way this trip plan worked, I'm not saying I would have used this as the perfect example because I'm not sure the rider should have to transfer and walk 19 minutes, but at least I know where to go. And so in this trip plan, I'm getting off and they're guiding me. You know, there may be other ways to walk safely, roll safely. And for a wheelchair accessible route, this is our best option. I'm not analyzing whether the data had all of its wheelchair accessibility in there or why the trip plan had changed. But can everyone see there are some options? In this case, the transfer is at the main center. We can see what the total travel time is. Maybe I want to get there by 11 o'clock, but I'd really rather get there by 10:40 so that I can find the building that I need to go to. And the trip plan option does include the estimated walk time rather than expecting us to live or sleep at the bus stop where we will be getting off. We do in this case, I don't think we see what the details are for the price. Whoops. When I have a agency that shares their fare information, as we saw here, we knew that it would cost $1. This is the one-way adult fare. There are some very complicated fares V2 that would allow us to have seniors and elders and veterans might ride free and all of those things. Right now, for me, I'd like to at least know, do I need $1 in my pocket? Or if the system is fare free and you haven't published that, that might be an opportunity to turn on a very simple bit of data in the GTFS that says fare free right now. Don't look for $1. Do I have a transfer? Is it an hour? You know, can I transfer 3 times, 1 time? All of that can go right into the GTFS for transfer information. I'm going to now move over and say, what happens if I pull out my fabulous Lawrence Kansas, I didn't even know this existed, my census test, a language identification card. And clearly they speak another language. They still need to get where they're going. And I can't even ask, are you speaking Bengali, Croatian? Because I wouldn't know how to say any of that. So let's say they return a point or a checkbox here in Cambodian. I would be able to turn my information, well, now I'm showing Spanish, into Cambodian. I may not read Cambodian. I don't need to, but this trip plan information is the same information. These are the details. And I can see all of the stops along the way. So if I, as a mobility manager or someone in the customer service office, become a little familiar with either by phone, which is a similar interface, or on the computer, I could walk that person through planning their trip in their home language and offer them a trip plan. I could email them a trip plan in their language by using a feature in Google Maps. Well, I guess I should probably show it to you, not in Cambodian, but here as in languages. And now all of these languages are on the map, and the rider often sets their phone to their local language. And now we're no longer limited to the Title VI, Spanish, whatever limit of what we must provide. We're in this global intergalactic way of promoting our agency using either Spanish, which might be a familiar language to some, or Cambodian or any other. So can I open it up to questions if I went a little too fast in the spirit of what can this trip planner do that maybe we couldn't have done with a paper schedule not that long ago?
Ma'am, this is
Yes.
Sean with Topeka Metro. I'm the transit route scheduler. We just updated our GTFS, and it hasn't been updated for almost like 2 years now. And so, would we be responsible for sending this stuff to update it for your transit land thing, or is that something you guys would have to reach out for that?
I stay out of the middle because that would make all of us beholden on me. So let's go back and just see, because it won't take us very long. That's why I wanted this more of an interactive conversation, Sean. So thank you for asking. Did I lose Kansas? Wait a second. Let me look up Kansas again. And well, just looked you up. I believe, but until I look at it, I believe the link, the current link for Topeka Metro is this. So Sean, I don't know if that's the correct one, but can you find your way to this page?
Yeah, we can probably do that. We
Okay.
just now got everything updated. We're still working with Google. They said it's going to take like 30 days probably to get everything fixed because we're still showing double stops and stuff the last couple of years. So,
Well,
uh,
hang in there. I can offer, between all of us, that sometimes Google is very precise and they're asking for something optional. Feel
mhm.
free to reach back to me and say, Marcy, we're down to this last 3 or 4 things, or even the last 10 things. Can you help me decide which of these I want to do? Because sometimes if you just say, that's optional, I'm not doing it right now, we can move
Mm,
forward.
okay,
But at times when they ask and you spend 2 to 20 hours fixing it, you haven't gained anything. The rider gains a little bit, or it could just be added later. There are some
okay,
optional things that we could evaluate for a later day, but get you
right,
back on the door, in through the door so that riders are not frustrated.
right.
That is actually going to be one of my next concepts of old data that writers don't know what to do with. So hold that thought, Sean. Did you get an
Okay,
answer on what you were asking?
yeah, that was the only thing I
Fantastic.
had to ask about.
Okay, fabulous. So maybe you have, or maybe you haven't seen that at any time, if you click on a bus stop and you know to slide over here to the slider, you will now see all the next departures. Pretty nifty. I could stand in front of a hospital day and night and not know whether the bus is coming by, but with my phone, click on that bus stop. Oh, the whatever number is coming by sooner or later. It may be hard to notice on this, but you all have better eyes than I do. The green would say we have real-time information for this particular route right now. It's on schedule, I believe, or running late, but at least I don't have to go to a whole nother app and find out, is this bus running late? Do I have an extra minute for a bathroom break or whatever I need to catch the bus when I depart? So green light that you can see our routes, and I'm not quite clear, maybe this is coming inbound and outbound for a 42, riders will figure out where they're heading from this stop based on the routes that are available. You asked me a little bit about what kinds of things might look a little funky sometimes. So I look up transfer center or multimodal transfer center. I couldn't make this up. I didn't put it on the map to cause any confusion. And it might be that your transfer center is going to be somewhere near this golf course. Someone has placed your multimodal transportation center in the middle of a road. I can't fix it, but you can. You'd come down here to send feedback, and I'm not going to fill it in, but there's a wrong something in a wrong way. And coming from a government operation rather than somebody, 20 states away around the world, they will likely find a way to improve it. And you would say, this is located somewhere else. So this is just one example. There are many times that we start looking at the map in the new way and we go, oh, that Chili's isn't in business anymore. I better report that because we tell people to stand near the Chili's bus stop. Chili's out of business for this location. I'm sorry if they are or not. And then we can update the rider experience so that they're not looking for a business that's not there anymore. Does it make a little bit of sense that we can't control the whole world, but we can, as we use this mapping tool, make it a little bit better? The next area that I wanted to show was longer distance trips. So what happens if that rider needs to visit someone in Wichita and they need to get on a local bus, then they're going to get on a Greyhound? We couldn't have done this very easily some years ago. Whoops. It's really hard to imagine any customer service person keeping track of Greyhound. And here's a good example. The Greyhound's running almost 2 hours late. Well, are you going to make your connection? Maybe you'll make the next connection. All of this is now happening in real time that rider, as they land in Wichita, can have a proper next connection rather than, sorry, the bus you needed was 2 hours ago and we don't know what to tell you. So interagency transfers, you'll want to look at some of those and say, we do share that bus stop, but it's showing them on opposite sides of the road or just a little too far down the road. And the rider really should know they're at one location. They don't have to, look right and left and hope their bus is somewhere else. Unlikely on an interagency long distance, at least at this point. Greyhound is not publishing, Flixbus is not publishing their fares. So don't sweat that you can't tell that rider, oh, are you a senior? Are you a this, a one-way adult fare? At least they can find out that a trip exists, what times of day. Gee, they're going to be transferring at 2 a.m. and the next departure, logically, is this Route 27 available starting at 5. So these kinds of links down here are the ones that a rider might want. And if they wanted to buy a ticket, there could possibly be a better link for them to the fares and passes page rather than the home page. So you've asked me a little bit about what kinds of things might be a little bit easier for the rider. This is an example that this link would go into the GTFS. I can tell you where, and everyone else who knows GTFS could also, on that agency set of data, offer a slightly better rider experience because then they can buy their pass ahead or whatever they need to do. I didn't show, but it makes sense to me because I stare at this all the time, that a rider might need to get back. And so this idea of flipping the trip, changing the day of week, maybe I want to arrive by 9 in the morning. I want to know about the last available option for myself to get where I'm going so that I don't miss the last bus. And this data is so much more functional than what we had when someone was just trying to call in and say, how do I get from here to there? What are my options? Maybe I'm not going to choose the 10-hour option. Maybe I'll know to have somebody drop me off at the transfer center rather than take the 2-minute part of the trip or the 5-minute part of the trip and then wait for the next morning to depart. So I'm not saying all of these would be the smartest way to go, but at least it helps me to know what my options are. We might decide, and this goes back to possibly the comment that we heard from Topeka, we might want to know that the data is expired, but we don't know which data is expired. So I'm planning a trip and I'm leaving Lawrence. I want to go into Nebraska. I'm going to visit my cousin. And all I know is something isn't right. Well, the agreement with Google, I'm not enforcing it, I'm not your lawyers. The agreement with Google would say, or said, you will keep this data up to date, and that they could pull you off of the Google map if you don't keep it up to date. Some days I think it might be better to not see something that I don't know is accurate or not. So each of you are inspired and work very hard, and I'm hearing even harder to try to bring older data that just was legacy and not as up to date to current. But I'm assuring you that, at least from me as a writer, it's agonizing. Because at least if you told me this is suspect, I would know that the rest of it is not. And I'd only know to call them. Green light on how we can make a GTFS work for you in terms of many trip options, how this would be available, what our, preferences might be. So let's look at the possibility that someone decides at a state level to create a regional trip planner, statewide trip planner. I will tell you, this is an excruciating process. You will not be the first one who is tortured by this, but it is not easy to get that same data that we can see on Google Maps over to its own trip planner. It's getting much better, and I'm not discouraging you. You just want to start thinking about, is anybody going to find this website? And I wish I had written down the numbers, but it was not thousands of people after a year or two of promotion that knew to come here in order to find trip planning options that are including the flex routes. And that's one of the main reasons you might want to consider using a alternate trip planner rider experience. So in their particular case, they want some metrics. So they're going to say, are you going to a particular event? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. And if I want to put in some information, maybe it's not the same kind of user experience. I was trying to use that double click thing on the map, and maybe I want to go to Burlington. And now it shows me that I have some options. And in this case, I come down here. I found it a little awkward that I didn't see any line show up, but I'm just saying in my mind, what's my experience? What am I expecting? If I didn't happen to see this, would I know that I had a result under this? This is a fabulous website. It's doing a lot more than any other website will do, and I'll show you in a moment how it'll help us with some flex routes, but I'm just letting you know the kinds of things that might be a little confusing to a rider. So here is a trip plan, and what is included over here on the left, I need to be able to slide down for you to read it. The Tri-Valley Transit Dial-A-Ride program provides a free door-to-door transportation for seniors, persons with disability, Medicaid, and low income. Call 48 hours ahead. That's what we gain, because right now, all of these trip planners do not yet officially and do not allow for a flex GTFS. So now along here, to get from here to your nearest bus stop, you read this note, you make a phone call, you say, oh, that's right, I needed to call 2 days ago in order to get where I'm going. Or I will know to plan in the future next time, or I'll need to ask somebody to drive me. And I'm not sure why they couldn't drive to here if they were going north. Again, I'm just giving you some examples of the trip planner is fabulous. You'll need to help do a little training sometime on how it may work from the rider perspective. I can dive a little more deeper on this. It's more of a, gee, I didn't know that we can't show these dial-a-ride flex services officially at Google Maps. But what I have offered in my area, because I've been told for 10 years that we are going to have an available flex GTFS, and it hasn't happened yet. So for these riders, I offer, oh, it's floating around here. There we go. A 161 is my flex dial-a-ride for this community. Passengers must call the agency for a pickup. Middle of the day, there's only on-demand service. Edges of the day where commuters are, we have some fixed route. But is the rider going to take 8 minutes to get there? I don't know. Might be 12. They're making a phone call and they don't have to leave at 10:01. They're going to leave when they need to leave. They're going to go where they need to go on this peninsula using current GTFS, right? I didn't pay for a whole nother trip planner, but I used a workaround that National RTAP offers to just say, where are some of the places people might go? Mark it as passengers must call the agency. And now, even though it's not perfect, it's not everybody's door, it doesn't leave at the exact minute that the driver's going to come pick you up. There's some flaws, but this has been available for 10 years. And I haven't had anyone from Grays Harbor Transit come back to me saying, we're getting thousands of phone calls from frustrated people standing on bus stops when they didn't see this warning that they needed to call for a pickup. So does that make some sense that we are attempting to work within the constraints that are available and give riders options? I can show you one other example a little closer to you in Greensboro. And they have gone from fixed route to a flexi service. What did I do there? Lovely picture. But they are allowing riders on some of their routes to use a on-demand service so that they can know to get picked up when needed. I'm not pulling it up right now, but I know it's in this area that they have here, this 2021 passengers must call. And what they did in their case is they actually put that phone number on most of their bus stops as a stop within their stop name so that the rider knows to call. And they're saying it's working so far. They've had one frustrated rider, but otherwise allowing that person to know there are some options is using within our current constraints. They turn their physical fixed route service to flex by turning on passenger must call the agency for this particular route. That was the majority of what I wanted to share with you in terms of what is GTFS, how could you make it work, what other, we can play around a little bit more with this flex service through a separate option of building your own trip planner. We probably should have some more information about how did Vermont or who else is a state that has one. I know Michigan's working on one. I don't know if it's live to the public. The folks in Minnesota have a region that they worked on adding all of this flex. But what they found, and maybe this is important, that the Transit app so I'm not just saying transit, but specifically transit app that's usually on mobile, has a limit of 183 miles for a region. So each region would have to get built, and then the rider would have to know that they're going over a region. I don't quite think I've wrapped my head around how all of that works, because honestly, when you start looking at trip plans that can get me across the state, across the country, I don't want to remember, did I hit my 184th mile going from here to there? And the other part I heard, and I'm going to try to validate this in real time with a conversation, that Transit app is not free to publish the GTFS Flex data. So as much as I can try to understand everybody's business model, they might change it like next week. And from what I've heard, there might be a fee. And everything you hear from National RTAP and your local RTAP is free, free, free. So the tools that we used to help build for Natalie, her network, didn't cost her any more than some pain and suffering in that it was scary. But beyond the scary, once it started to knock down being not so scary, she was able to generate and publish and update her GTFS, meet NTD, do all good things. Natalie, maybe you want to unmute and say how good your experience was once we got over the terror, if you're still with us.
Yeah, sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm really thankful that it's done and it does work well. And once we kind of got going, Marcy was fantastic to help me through this process. It's good. It's good. I'm glad that I got to go through it. I'm still standing, so that's all good.
Oh, there were moments in there, and there were cases for Natalie and I where Google had some errors. And now we're going up against a pretty big gorilla there saying, no, it doesn't work that way. We need you to fix something. And they're like, who are you again? You want us to do what? But then they agreed that there was a little glitch in the data processing. And none of us are expecting that, but that's another part of this whole GTFS ecosystem. It's a technology. Things go wrong and they need to be fixed, and don't be afraid to reach back to Google through that partner dash and a Gmail directly to a team at Google. You're never going to get them on a phone, but usually, what was it, about a week or so? Maybe Natalie and I don't even remember. It took some time. Sometimes we'd have to nudge, but they did fix things when they could to solve problems that were there.
Yeah, I would have to add, I was pleasantly surprised at how quickly they actually responded to us. Marcy kind of braced me for they might not respond, within the week or whatever. And they actually did. For my experience, they were much quicker than what I thought. So if there's hope that there was that, I really appreciate that. And just the help. And I have to really say, thank you very much, Marcy, for your patience with me and just learning some things. I hadn't really learned how to share screens of this capacity. That was kind of interesting. Yeah. Yeah, we did good.
It was awesome to work with you, Natalie, and any others who might not yet have a Passio or a blah, blah, blah available to them to generate a GTFS. And while Natalie's data went in clean to Google, that's another factor. And I don't know what Topeka's experience is, but if a bus stop is on the wrong side of the road, there are literally people at Google staring at that map, trying to, decode that data makes logical sense. You can have bus stops wherever you want. You can go into a parking lot on the other side of the road. All of that is fine, but your shape line, what's, wiggling across the screen right here, needs to match. So don't change your data to meet Google. You just need to make sure that it represents accurately with these shape lines. Now, shape lines are optional, and Natalie and I could have nudged, but it might be that if there was a bus stop at this corner and a bus stop there, sometimes we're seeing data that's a straight line. That might be confusing to your riders to say, we get from here to there. We just go actually on roads and not through grandma's backyard. So for the most part, at National RTAP, when offered an inspiring person to work with, we'll make sure that you have these shape lines associated as well. You can have a GIS expert on your team. We'd love to work with them, but you don't need ArcGIS. You don't need to hire a GISP professional. They're fabulous. We use My Maps, and in My Maps, we're able to draw the route on the road and snap it in to the Excel workbooks that we work with. I don't know that that's anybody's concern on this call, but I'm just letting you know, in the event that you want to add a route and you just can't afford some other service that might be out there, we could work with you. I'm not trying to put these other people out of business. They're fabulous. I just want you to know, you could have an intern learn how to use a free tool, and I can explain it if helpful. We didn't run through what a validator does, but I would encourage you, I guess I could put this into the chat, or I would encourage you to be familiar with the link here. It's on the National RTAP website related to the GTFS and our additional resources. What we would do here, I don't know, Sean, would it be okay if we run the Topeka file through here just as a real live example? Would that bother you to see
Sure,
what?
go ahead.
Okay, we know that it may not be perfect, and that's fine. But what we're doing is taking this link, this public link. I think I just wanted to copy it. Where did that go? Didn't want to download it. Just a minute. I want to copy the link. I chose the wrong user error there. I come over to this validator and I run the validator through, and I notice, or I should say the validator notices, a number out of range. I don't know what that actually means. I've never seen number out of range. Shape distance travel is a negative value. Unlikely, impossible, out of range. Your new data won't have this, but
No.
you can see that severity comes up error, as in this would not be accepted by Google or any trip planner because, for example, we can't go negatives. Did they just put a minus sign in there by mistake? That's possible, but they would have had to do it 58 times. We know the calendars are expired. I can even see that up here. So, a route color contrast. Okay. So on this particular data set, I'm able to see that I should have used zeros instead of Fs to get a better contrast. And that brings me to one other question that I will mention in a few minutes, but once you hack through these, sometimes there'll be more, but most of the time you're looking for errors. And I would encourage you very much to look through warnings, even though the National Transit Database might say we can accept a data set with a warning in there. If your data is expired, those riders will never know how to get on that bus because it's showing we don't know if this is valid. It's expired data, that warning that we saw earlier. So did everybody get a solid feeling how to go load from a URL on your website? And I know Natalie's data is clean because I worked with her on that, but it would just be taking this link and dropping it in to this. And Natalie did this a few times with me, running it through the validator, because we wanted to see and make sure that no other little gremlins came in.
So now, if you go to our website, it's got the new one on there and it works just fine now. So,
well, let's run that through. So I'm going to go to your website, which is here, correct? Yep. Can I just open it?
Yep.
Okay. So now if I search for GTFS, would that work? I don't see a search.
It should be down towards the bottom.
On that homepage. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Navigate with me.
Yeah. There you go. And then click on that.
And I saw it, but it'll say .zip. We want to see that URL. Fantastic. Look at that. No errors. And
got a warning there,
not expired. A handful of warnings. a warning is, hey, it might be nice for us to have this. I can't even read what's in there. Can you see anything? I don't see
Still got that
anything.
dang color contrast, but we're
Okay.
trying to fix that. But
Okay. And if you have any frustration with that, these need to be zeros, and I could help you offline with that. We can get this cleaned up. And now,
okay.
why would a trip distance exceed below a threshold? How do you have exceed and below? I'm not sure. I'd probably need to stare a little bit more at this, but it might be that the shape line goes a little beyond where that last stop is. It's a
Okay.
warning. You probably don't need to worry about it. And it's saying something about 0.13 of a meter.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, is a flea going to walk by and measure that for you? I think we'll just leave it as ignore unless Google really, feels hypersensitive about that. But here
Right.
we have 774 trips are represented, almost 600 bus stops, 25 routes representing 39 different shapes that needed to be drawn. It's a hell of a lot of data that's digitized and 95% fine, probably even 99% fine. We might want to
Right.
work on those colors. So speaking of the colors, when I look at some of these data sets, I do find this is difficult for my eyes. I cannot see that difference. So maybe take some time. Um, at National ITAP, I can show you, but just ask someone to flip from white to black or black to white on the color contrast.
Okay.
You can, maybe that'll be there. I'm telling you, it's hard to see, and I'm making it hard to see. We did talk about a trip planner. Um, I did want to mention another neighbor to you, and it's a project I do work on, and it's rough. There are a lot of times little things in the code for the open trip planner are not available as they would be at Google Maps related to detours and change of service. And maybe they will come online, but they're not online yet. So the rider has to know to go to this trip planner if they want to see whether the bus is running late and we're going to recalculate, or this trip planner to see more of their regional options. The other comment I can make is for a trip planner like this, we're using OpenStreetMaps, much more affordable than buying a Google map as the base layer. But if there's something wrong, I can fix it. That's what an OpenStreetMap does. But the rider doesn't know the hours of Chili's because every store and every hour, things that we might rely on a map are not available to an OpenStreetMap layer. And again, there's going to be a boundary where this trip planner stops. And I, as a rider, am not going to know that I can't go from Edmond to Lawrence, Kansas, because I can't tell that the map literally only serves a region. So national trip planners have made it easier for riders to not have to think, what are my boundaries? Before I forget, and I'm certainly available to answer more questions, we do have a couple of upcoming events that might be of interest to sign up at nationalrtap.org and our webinars page. We do have a marketing toolkit that we're very excited about, reboots what we've done before, and not that any of you will ever retire, but we certainly want to consider the possibility that we have a succession plan, and it's part of a LinkedIn Learn Along. If any of you can think beyond the next 15 minutes or a week or month, in December of 2025, we'll be meeting in Austin. This is our technical assistance conference. We hope to be looking more into the GTFS Flex and where it is live and available for everyone with some free tools that we can offer. And we'd like you to put that on your calendar and join us there. The TACL is Transportation Technical Assistance Coordination Library. I'm assured that I need to tell you that it exists and it coordinates, and it's really lovely to have all of these links on one screen for those of you who might need more of the shared use mobility flavor as opposed to something else. And I guess I moused over it so much you'll now know that their website is there. I leave you with, you can come to the PowerPoint that we have. I'm not going to end until you tell me we've answered all your questions, but you'll know that you can reach me through this page as well. Where would anyone like me to go? Do you want me to show you how Oklahoma's trip planner works, or do you want to just plan a trip to Oklahoma and go to Oklahoma City and use their local trip planner? Go back to other statewide trip planners. Anyone put any questions into chat? I'm not monitoring that as much, but you're not shy to unmute yourself and join us.
Is there any way you can schedule it like tomorrow with like a Zoom or something with Jessica and I? She's the planner that was helping me with the
Absolutely.
and so
So
we can both talk at the same time and
absolutely.
we can
But
schedule something.
speaking of, on a Thursday, I do have office hours. National RTAP offers GTFS office hours. I feel like your case is not going to be the same kind of how do I load at NTD and some basics. So reach out to me, then I'll send you the Calendly link, or to anyone, and then we can
Okay.
schedule some time together to do a deep dive for you in Topeka.
Yeah, it probably won't take us very long. Just I would like you to look at our GTFS file and just see what you think that we can do just to clean it up a little bit more
There you
before
go.
we finalize it or anything.
Excellent. This is a service that National RTAP wants to offer. While primarily we're rural and tribal and under 50,000, there aren't a lot of free help out there.
Yeah.
And because I stare at it so much, I'm more than happy. Most of your big communities in larger urban areas don't need my help, but you never know. So thank you.
Well,
I'm honored.
I just started this job in July and I used to be a bus driver and so I got thrown into this we started a new AVL system in the same time. So we think we gave them some bad GTFS files and so the file system has kind of been corrupted from their end. So that's why I've been
Okay.
fixing it. And so we're trying to give them a clean version. So at the
So
same time.
this experience, Sean, is not uncommon. We
Right.
think what we had was working, and it might have worked, but pre-pandemic or whatever. And
Hmm.
it's not a once and done process. If you're going to
Right.
go to that senior center and put out a new schedule, you've got to update your GTFS. We're not going to know
Yeah.
that the route stops, everything have changed unless somebody updates it. So
Right.
Natalie, that's a little warning to you if you decide to update some routes. We're going to tune up the GTFS so that at the public side, at the Google Maps, Apple Maps, Yahoo Maps, whoever had Bing Maps, some of these you've probably never done a trip plan on them, but they're swallowing up this data and also trying to stay in the game so that their riders or their customers can stay inside of their ecosystem.
Right.
So, Sean, green light, I want to support you and anyone. Do we have anybody else who's not shy or might have a question about GTFS that I could answer in the next few minutes?
Marcy, not necessarily a question, but just wanted to give another example of the value of GTFS. We
Please.
work with transit agencies on fleet transition planning. And to do that, we do a lot of energy modeling to figure out what charging would look like to be able to see what they need. And having good GTFS data is really important for a model. So just another reason to invest in GTFS. But thanks for the presentation today. Really interesting.
Well, Adam, thank you for speaking up again. I stay in my lane as much as I can, but when I say there are apps or research or something needed for those of you who are transitioning, you can't tell someone we go 3 times a day when you go 30 times a day and then ask them for a bid or a quote on what kind of infrastructure you're going to need. Keeping your GTFS up to date will make that happen. And ideally, it shouldn't be difficult. So anyone else that's not shy or can share with us any other yay or nay? Were there any bad experiences with GTFS that we could have you say, gee, I learned this and, we don't want to do that again? That's the other reason we have a conversation and a meetup. works like a charm when it's working. And to Beth and Kara, I very much thank you for inviting me today. I don't know that I thanked you on the introduction, but what a nice opportunity to meet with your team. And for those who couldn't be here, maybe you made it this far into the webinar recording. And if there are other topics that might be related, we could maybe do mobility managers and GTFS. Because while I show some examples, maybe I don't dive as deeply into how would the mobility manager really want to do some training with their riders. I feel like I gave you a few hints, but there might be even more to it.
Thank you for your help.
You're very welcome, Sean. Looking forward to working with you tomorrow or soon.
Okay, I will email you when I get back with Jessica to see what time she wants to be able to with your schedule too. So
Fabulous. Okay.
all right, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon, all.
You too.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you, Marcy. And just so everyone knows, we have recorded this and it will be uploaded to our YouTube page, which I just posted in the chat. So if you know anyone who couldn't attend, or you just want to go back and look at all the amazing information that Marcy gave us today, feel free to do that. And thank you so much, Marcy, for joining us today.